What if I told you that a man once made a simple decision to go 30 days without complaining? No frustration in his voice, no blaming the world, not even a single negative thought, if he could help it. At first, it sounded like something small, almost unimportant, the kind of challenge people try for a day or two and then forget. But what happened during those 30 days did not just change his habits. It quietly changed the way he saw his entire life. And by the time you reach the end of this story, you may begin to realize that it is not your problems that shape your life the most, but the way you respond to them. In a busy city filled with constant noise, flickering lights, and streets that never truly rested, there lived a man named Rohan. Every morning, the city woke before the sun had fully risen, and so did he. The sound of his alarm cut through the quiet of his small apartment, and without much thought, he would reach out to silence it, already feeling tired. His days followed a routine so predictable that it felt almost mechanical. He would get ready in a hurry, step out into crowded streets, and join the endless flow of people moving toward their responsibilities. Cars honked impatiently, buses rattled past, and voices blended into a constant hum that never seemed to fade. From the outside, Rohan's life looked completely ordinary. He had a stable job, a place to live, and a routine that kept everything in order. But inside, something was always unsettled. If someone had followed him quietly through the day, they would have noticed a pattern that even Rohan himself did not fully recognize. He complained. He complained about waking up too early, about the traffic that never seemed to move fast enough, about the weather being too hot or too cold. At work, he complained about the pressure, the deadlines, the expectations. Even during moments of rest, his mind found something to be dissatisfied with. It was not loud or dramatic. It was subtle, constant, and deeply rooted. Over time, it had become a part of him, like a habit that no longer needed effort, like a voice that never went silent. And slowly, without realizing it, that voice began to shape how he experienced everything around him. Even on days when nothing particularly bad happened, he felt restless. Even in moments of calm, he felt a quiet heaviness that he could not explain. It was as if the world around him was covered in a thin layer of dissatisfaction. One evening, after a long and tiring day, Rohan found himself walking through a small park he rarely visited. The noise of the city softened there, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and distant laughter of children playing. The sky above was painted in warm shades of orange and pink, slowly fading into the deeper tones of evening. The light filtered softly through the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. Rohan sat down on an old wooden bench. For a moment, everything was still. But even in that stillness, he sighed. "Nothing ever feels right," he said under his breath. On the other side of the bench sat an old man. He had been there quietly, watching the evening unfold without interruption. His face carried a calmness that seemed untouched by the rush of the world. He turned slightly and looked at Rohan. "You complain a lot," the old man said, gently without judgment. Rohan glanced at him, a little surprised, a little defensive. "Life gives me enough reasons to complain," he replied. The old man did not argue. He simply smiled, as if he had heard that answer many times before. "Then try something different," he said. Rohan frowned slightly. "Like what?" The old man leaned forward just a little, his voice calm and steady. "Spend the next 30 days without complaining, not in your words, and not even in your thoughts." For a moment, Rohan almost laughed. It sounded too simple, too easy to matter. But something about the old man's quiet certainty made him pause. "All right," he said after a moment. "I'll try." The next morning, the challenge began. When the alarm rang, the usual irritation rose instantly, like it always did. But this time, Rohan noticed it. He paused, took a breath, and got out of bed without saying anything. It felt strange, unnatural, but also intentional. As the day went on, the real difficulty began to reveal itself. The traffic was heavier than usual. People pushed past him in a hurry. At work, unexpected tasks piled up without warning. Small inconveniences appeared one after another, just as they always had. And each time the complaint rose inside him automatically. But now, he could see it, and he stopped it, again and again. For the first time in his life, Rohan became aware of how quickly his mind reacted to everything. It was as if his thoughts had been trained over years to search for what was wrong. By the third day, the challenge no longer felt simple. Even when he remained silent, his mind was loud. Thoughts of frustration, irritation, and dissatisfaction continued to appear, one after another, like waves that refused to settle. It was exhausting. There were moments when he felt like giving up. What is the point of this? He wondered. Nothing is changing, but something inside him chose to continue. Around the seventh day, something subtle began to shift. It was not a big change, not something dramatic, just a small pause. When something went wrong, instead of reacting immediately, Rohan found himself stopping for a moment. And in that small space between reaction and response, something new appeared. Awareness. When he was stuck in traffic, he noticed the colors of the sky slowly changing as evening approached. When work felt overwhelming, he focused on one task at a time instead of letting everything pile up in his mind. And when irritation appeared, he asked himself a simple question: is complaining helping me right now? The answer was always the same: no. Days turned into weeks, and slowly something within him began to quiet down. The world around him had not changed. The traffic was still there. The noise was still there. The problems were still there. But his experience of those things felt lighter. He began to notice small details he had ignored for years. The gentle movement of leaves in the wind, the rhythm of footsteps on the pavement, the brief moments of silence between conversations. At work, he felt more focused. Instead of wasting energy on frustration, he used it to find solutions. His thoughts became clearer, his reactions calmer. Without realizing it, he was changing. On the 29th day, the real test came. Rohan made a mistake at work. An important file went missing, and the situation quickly became stressful. His boss was upset, his colleagues were tense, and the pressure was heavy. For a moment, everything inside him reacted. The urge to complain, to blame, to defend himself, it all rose at once. But this time, he paused. He took a slow breath. "I'll fix it," he said quietly. That night, he stayed back and worked with full focus. There were no complaints, no frustration, no wasted energy, only effort and clarity. By the next morning, the problem was solved. On the 30th day, Rohan returned to the same park, the same bench, the same soft evening sky. The old man was there, just as before. "So," he asked gently, "did your life change?" Rohan smiled, and this time it was calm and real. "My life didn't change," he said slowly. He looked around, taking in the quiet beauty of the moment. "But I did." He paused for a moment before continuing. "My problems are still there. Nothing disappeared. But they don't control me anymore." The old man nodded, as if he had expected this answer all along. And in that moment, Rohan understood something deeply. Complaining does not solve problems. It only makes them feel heavier. It keeps your focus on what is wrong and takes away your ability to respond clearly. But when you stop complaining, even for a short time, you begin to see things differently. You begin to think more clearly. And slowly, you begin to live more peacefully. From that day on, Rohan did not try to control everything around him. He simply chose to respond better to whatever came his way. If you want to try this 30-day challenge yourself, The easiest way to start is by replacing complaints with gratitude. I've linked a beautiful daily gratitude journal below to help you begin. And if you love stories that reveal powerful life lessons, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to stay updated.